Welcome to Authentic Models, your ultimate destination for engaging life stories and captivating journeys of the modeling world's most celebrated figures. From legendary runway stars to pioneering fashion influencers, we delve into the lives and careers of those who've redefined style and set new standards in the industry. Tune in every week for fresh content featuring rare interviews, exclusive behind-the-scenes access, and inspiring accounts of models who've made a lasting impression on fashion history. Today on our highlight is ZAKEYA. ZAKEYA Stulgate was born in Cape Town, South Africa, a city where wind cuts through stone and stories hang in the air like smoke, where every hill holds history and every street corner carries rhythm. She was the daughter of a seamstress with hands that knew how to make beauty last and a father who played saxophone in a jazz club near the harbor, where the lights blurred like memories and laughter. ZAKEYA grew up surrounded by patterns of fabric and patterns of thought. Her mother taught her how to feel texture, not just touch it, how to thread a needle with patience, how to measure a waist without shame, and her father taught her how to hear the silence between notes, how to stand still while the world moved fast, and in that home of color and sound she learned how to exist without apology. Tall and long-limbed, with skin the color of toasted gold and a gaze that never turned away, ZAKEYA was always a little ahead of her time, sketching dresses while other kids played outside, memorizing old issues of fashion magazines while humming the melodies her father played late at night. Her hobbies were endless and ever-evolving. She loved painting, especially abstract faces in oils and charcoal. She loved hiking through the mountains around Cape Town, often alone, listening to the way the earth moved. She read philosophy for fun, loved astronomy, and could name constellations without looking them up. And every Saturday, she volunteered at an animal rescue center, brushing dogs and feeding injured birds. Because something about caring for things that couldn't ask for help made her feel grounded and necessary. At 16, she took a photograph in her grandmother's backyard wearing a dress she designed herself, and that photo changed everything. It was posted on a small blog, and from there it spread until scouts and stylists from Johannesburg to London were sending messages asking her to model. But ZAKEYA didn't just want to be a model, she wanted to be an architect of image, a storyteller through style, a force not a frame. And so she entered the industry on her own terms, setting boundaries, turning down offers that felt hollow, and accepting only the work that honored her body, her background, and her beliefs. Her occupation became model, yes, but also designer, creative director, cultural consultant, and educator. She walked runways in Paris, Milan, Lagos, and New York, not just as a body in motion, but as a symbol of something rare and rooted. She graced magazine covers and fashion campaigns for major global brands, but also designed her own collections based on indigenous South African textiles and silhouettes inspired by the strength of the women in her lineage. She founded her own creative agency by the age of 25, employing young artists, writers, photographers, and stylists from across the continent, and used her influence to champion ethical fashion and fair labor. Her work was featured in museums as installation art. Her essays on beauty politics were published in fashion theory journals, and she gave guest lectures at design schools around the world, speaking about representation, sustainability, and how culture is not a trend to be borrowed, but a living system to be respected and preserved. Even with her success, she stayed deeply connected to her passions, often spending evenings sketching dresses or climbing up Table Mountain with nothing but a notebook and thermos of tea. Sometimes she painted murals on community centers, sometimes she built garments by hand for survivors of domestic violence. Sometimes she simply disappeared into a forest with her camera and returned with images that looked like dreams. She never chased fame, she chased feeling, meaning, and she lived her life like a quiet revolution, step by step, seam by seam, word by word. And when people asked her what she did for a living, she would simply smile and say, I shape light into memory, I turn silence into form, I model, yes, but more than that, I build beauty from the inside out. In her leisure, ZAKEYA Stulgate often escapes the noise of the industry and returns to the quiet places that keep her grounded. She loves hiking through the trails around Table Mountain, where the wind is soft and the views stretch forever. She walks with no destination, letting the rhythm of her steps guide her, sometimes stopping to sketch leaves or journal her thoughts. She enjoys painting large canvases with bold colors, sometimes abstract, sometimes soft portraits of faces she's seen only once in passing. She listens to jazz records from her father's collection and lets the sound fill the room while she sips rooibos tea and paints. Without planning, she reads poetry, especially South African poets, and writes lines in the margins of old notebooks. She takes photographs of small unnoticed moments, shadows falling on stone-cracked pavement, sun flares on window glass, and then turns those photos into visual diaries. She also loves visiting quiet libraries where she reads books on history, philosophy, astronomy and textile design. She studies constellations through an old telescope she keeps near her window and can name every star in the southern sky. She enjoys visiting local markets, speaking with artisans, and collecting handmade objects that remind her of her heritage. She bakes sometimes, especially when she's thinking, letting her hands move as her mind settles. She volunteers weekly at a wildlife sanctuary, where she helps care for rescued animals, especially birds and small injured dogs. She teaches free sewing classes to young girls in her neighborhood, sharing her skills with patience and laughter. She meditates, often in silence or with soft ambient music, and lights incense to clear her thoughts. She sometimes writes letters on paper with ink and no intention of sending them, just to feel words move through her again. She makes jewelry from beads and shells she finds near the water. She watches old films, especially ones without dialogue, and imagines her own stories behind each scene. And when she is not creating, she is resting in gardens, at the ocean, on rooftops, letting stillness speak louder than sound.